Welcome to What Drives You with your host, Mike Gourdet. Human solution consultant from Seattle, Washington. It is now time to sit back, buckle up for the show that drives the asking question of what drives you. And now your host, Mike Gourdet.
And welcome back for our second episode of What Drives You, the show about why we do the things we do. So I've already done one and I've already messed it up. What that means is I wanted to follow up some of what I talked about in the last episode, that being about the uncertainty of this COVID thing, and give you some strategies on how to deal with this stuff. So we talked a little bit about how the uncertainty of this COVID climate has created a lot of anxiety and fear, which are coming out in some very strange ways. Now, I don't know if I mentioned it in the episode, but I call this the pendulum effect, where we have this excessive amount of change, which creates an excessive amount of anxiety. So the pendulum swings, and then we see a lot of odd behaviors that are outside of what we would consider normal. At any rate, I wanted to talk, before we move forward in our episode for today, I wanted to talk about some strategies that you can employ to help you deal with this climate, this change. Just some simple things. And one of those is to create certainty in your life. I talked a little bit about some of the reasons why people are doing the things that they're doing, is that they're creating certainty for themselves. And what I'm talking about is creating healthy alternatives to certainty. So, for instance, one of the things that I did when all this began was I began to walk every day. And at first, that was a difficult thing that I had to prompt myself and remember, and I wasn't used to doing it. But now I look forward to it, and it's become a routine for me. So I have a level of certainty about it, and that helps with some of the anxiety that can occur, because nobody knows what's going to happen. So one of the things that you can do in your life is create certainty in your daily life. You can't control what's going on out there in the world, but you can control what you do from a day-to-day basis. And one of the ways that we can employ this is to use things that your brain's already comfortable with, and that's routine. So create a routine around healthy activities that you can pattern into your life. And after, it's going to take some practice, but after you do this for a while, you will find yourself creating some certainty in your life that's going to help alleviate some of the anxiety you might be feeling. This also means that you have to be a little disciplined about this kind of stuff. That means you have to schedule it, you have to practice it, and you have to do it until it becomes second nature. So that's really going to be the hard part, but this is one way of making a strategy that can help this. Another thing that we can do is take a break from media. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. You know, Facebook, I call filth book a lot, because right in that area is every single fear and hate that I can find. So if I want to go on to my Facebook, I'm going to face that. So one of the things that you can do for yourselves, which I think is maybe a very difficult thing to do, but is to go on a fast, and maybe just a reduction. I say fast because I completely went off social media a while back, and I was really surprised at how relieving that was to my emotional state. You know, I wasn't bothered. I wasn't getting angry at everything. So this is essentially reducing some of the negative input that you're receiving on a day-to-day basis. We get so much already that when we engage in all this media stuff, it can create difficulties for us. So taking a break, or just reducing the amount of time you spend looking at all these situations and things can really help alleviate some of the anxiety that's going on. And then thirdly is just really understanding that while this is an unprecedented time for us, it's not unprecedented in history. We've gone through these types of things throughout history. Now, the ramifications are different. How we live in our modern society has changed from, say, the Black Plague, but at the same time, we're talking about adapting to change. So, one of the things that we have to realize is that this too will pass. We just have to get through it. It doesn't mean that we're not going to come out and go back to doing exactly what we were doing prior to COVID. It just means that we're going to adapt and this thing is going to change. And the emotional parts of this that is hard for everybody right now, they're going to level out just like the curve that you've probably heard about. So those are some strategies that you can use to help deal with some of the changes that are going on. So let's get into today's episode, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of this stuff. So today's episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the strange stuff that's going on. Like today, I am living in a very smoky day where all these wildfires down the West Coast is blowing up into Seattle and creating a almost toxic air, which is creating problems. And you may have seen in the news, one of the top stories this week has been a gender reveal party that went bad and ended up starting one of the fires of which I'm in California, of which I'm getting a consequence today. But what I wanted to do is talk about you, and specifically, I wanted to talk about today's episode is all about you. And specifically, it's about you being the center of your universe. Now, that's not the center of the universe. That's like, I'm sure some people are going to believe that they're the center of the universe. But for all intents and purposes, you are the center of your universe. And what I'm talking about here is called egocentrism. Everything that you experience in life, sensations, thoughts, beliefs, experiences, they all are filtered through your perception. You can't experience the world through somebody else's reality. You can only experience it through yours. And that is egocentrism. Now, clinically speaking, egocentrism is the inability to put yourself in somebody else's place. But we all have that inability at some level. Some of us can relate to others, some of us can't. But on some level, none of us can. And that's egocentrism. And how does this play into the top story and what I've been talking about the last couple of episodes? Well, you're going to experience life the way you do it. There is no way that I can look outside into the world and experience the world the way you do, because of all the things that go into your perception. Your perception is a lens that is created by layers of beliefs, of values, of experiences, of conditioning, things that over time build a complex pattern in the way you see the world. And how does this play out? Well, for instance, this story that I talked about, this coupled through a gender reveal party. Now, if some of you don't know what this is, the gender reveal party is similar to a baby shower, except the focus is on what the gender of the baby is. And we're talking about the stereotypical gender bias of boys is blue, girls is pink kind of idea. And the culmination of this party is to reveal this as part of the games. And what this couple did was they used an incendiary device, basically a smoke bomb, that burst with the color of the gender. Now, the unfortunate consequence of this is that in the severely drought and dry conditions of California, that is responsible for all the other fires going on. This particular device set off a new blaze, which is raging as we speak. And this couple is probably going to face not only local criminal charges, but also federal charges. So we'll see how that goes. Now, off the top of everybody's head, we can say, well, that was stupid. That really wasn't a good decision. And also, they are getting a ton of backlash on social media where people are saying they are stupid and people are saying, where is the common sense? At this point, this is where egocentrism takes center stage, if you will. So obviously we can all say that that decision was not a very smart decision. But what people tend to do is see that decision and then label the people as that decision. So instead of saying that was a stupid decision, we say those people are stupid. And that's where we get this common sense argument coming into play. We're saying these people should have had the common sense to know this was going to happen. Well, we don't know how they arrived at this decision, and there is absolutely no way they should be not held responsible for that decision. But the fact of the matter is they probably had no idea. I'm almost 100% sure they did not do this in order to create destruction, which is something that we all do. Now, what happens with this common sense thing is that we all believe that there should be some sort of common sense spectrum, that people should, take note of that word, should, people should form a pattern of predictable thoughts, actions, and behaviors that are considered the same and normal. Part of that is because as human beings, we want that to occur because same equals safe. As I said in the last episode, our brains are predicting machines, and primarily they're looking for threats. So what we like is the same. If something is the same, it's safe, generally speaking, and our brain likes that. But different often equals danger in our brain. So what's going on here? We are looking at these people, and they have made a disastrous decision. Now, I don't know how you feel about gender reveal parties, but I can tell you that's controversial. Some people love them and some people don't like them. We can look at this from a political aspect and think about how this type of gender stereotyping is going against diversity and inclusion types of arguments. And we can talk about this, but what this boils down to is personal beliefs. Now, what happens is, from that egocentric point of view, is as long as your beliefs match my beliefs, we're okay. When your beliefs do not match my beliefs, that's when potential conflict can occur. Why? Same equals safe, different equals danger. So here's the myth of common sense. Anybody who says they should have some common sense, they are basically laying their template of how they think on the way everybody else should think. We do it all the time. It's natural, it's normal, and it's often subconscious, which is one of the reasons why this program wants to bring this out. So we think, okay, common sense should look like this. And again, there's that word again, should. It is an externalization of my own belief system, of my own egocentrism. As long as things are simple and are the same for me, I'm okay. And since I'm the center of my universe, that is the primary factor of which I'm judging all these things against. Does that make sense? So we're laying the template of what we think common sense is over what everybody should be doing. Now, the problem with that is logical. everybody does not have the same systems of beliefs. Everybody does not have the same systems of values or experiences or anything. So what somebody thinks may be logical is not logical to the next person, and yada yada. And we can see this all over the place, especially during this time frame now where we've got COVID going off, we've got all these political protests going off, we've got a highly charged political election coming up. We've got everybody running around emoting all over everything, and the more emotional responses we have, the less ability we have for objective thinking. So there's a lot going on. So when I say where's the common sense, I'm looking at it from my point of view. That's the myth of common sense. Now, common sense has been talked about since the ancient Greeks, and it's been a philosophical cornerstone for things like collective intelligence, collective consciousness, things like that. Now, human beings do have a lot of commonalities, but it doesn't mean that we always have those commonalities at the same time. And so when somebody makes a decision, regardless of how you feel about a gender reveal party, that in and of itself is not a huge thing. But this is the problem. When these people made this decision to set off this bomb, now if they set off the smoke bomb and nothing happened, this wouldn't have been in the news. Nobody would have known about it. We wouldn't have cared. But because it did set off a firestorm, literally, we are now roasting these people over the barbecue because they made a not well informed decision. And because we are always looking for threats and negativity, they are now in our target. Why are we doing this? Why are we lambasting these people? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is back to the same equals safe. Okay, they made a decision that had disastrous results. Our brain says, oh, that's a threat. So what do we need to do? We need to separate ourselves from that decision. How do we do that? Well, we can lambast them publicly and say they're stupid people. Why do we label them? Because if we just label the decision, we can still be placed in their corner by the viewpoints of other people. But if we condemn them completely, if we reject them wholly on the basis of this one decision, we can separate ourselves from them and that decision so that we have no association with them in the eyes of other people. Is this making sense? One of our biggest fears is rejection. So we want to be associated with other people. We want acceptance by other people. And if I separate myself from that person that made that disastrous result, and all these other people are, I am now in cahoots with them. So I have acceptance from them and they have acceptance from me. And we have what's called social proof. And it's great. And our brains are happy and we're just living it up all the while we are hurting somebody else. This is some of the same activities that go in with cyberbullying, with other types of negative, destructive types of cycles that we are seeing all over the place in our country. So if that makes sense. So the egocentrism that we're experiencing is based on, again, this survival mechanism that we can only see the world through our own eyes. And if, as we're making those decisions, we're looking for the groups that we want to be associated with and to gain acceptance from. So it's easier for us to label the people instead of the decision, because that's a definite marking point of disassociation from them completely. Make sense? Clear as smoke, right? Clear as the smoke that's outside my window. Now, again, this isn't to justify any of the behavior. It's just sort of giving you a perspective on why this may be happening. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Just understand that because you are the center of your universe, you're likely to see things that are different and react to them. And part of this understanding, part of the great thing about this realization is that once you fully understand that, you will be less likely to react to things that are different. However, this is a process. It's something that you probably can understand intellectually or logically, but it's a completely different thing to understand it emotionally. And that's where we are trying to get you to. Is to understand things from an emotional standpoint so that when things happen, you become less reactive. It doesn't mean that you have to not react at all. It just means that you have less energy invested in these things, because one of the easiest places to get, especially nowadays, is into a very emotionally aroused state in which we make decisions that are often not very productive, because those are the easiest decisions to make. They are quick, they're easy, and next time we'll probably talk about heuristics, which is the way our brain works. So just remember, you are the center of your universe. Think about that. If you have any questions about it, please send me an email at mike@whatdrivesyou.net. That is Mike, M-I-K-E, at whatdrivesyou.net. You can also send questions about human behavior or whatnot, but take that as you will. And that's all I wanted to talk about today in that particular piece. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned, and we will have our interview, and then we will end up with the question of the day. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. And welcome back to What Drives You, the interview. Today we are talking with Jeff. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Hey, Mike. Pretty good.
So how is COVID-19 treating you this time in the crappy summer COVID stuff?
Everything's been okay personally. There hasn't been too much change to my day-to-day life, except for having kids home all the time for school purposes. But that's another matter, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a big question on people's minds, is how school is going. How is it playing out for you?
So far, it's been pretty good. The first couple of weeks for the North Shore School District, or Shelton View in particular, have been mostly orientation and just sort of the teachers getting to know the students, and the teachers scheduling conferences with parents. And so next Monday is sort of when the real academic schedule begins for my children.
Okay, I've gotten feedback from other people that say it's pretty difficult right now because nobody really knows how things are playing out. Are you experiencing that too?
Not so much yet. We're just kind of taking one day at a time and tackling those difficulties or those challenges. But as far as distance learning going, we're doing okay.
Okay, great. So, Jeff, I know we've known each other for several years. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a department manager for a prominent grocery chain. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I work nights mostly and home during the day with my kids. And I enjoy reading and mostly watching film when the opportunity arises.
Okay, so that's my next question is, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I want to know what people are passionate about. And what are you passionate about, Jeff?
Film and storytelling in general, I would say.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
Um, I think, well, I think it's, for me personally, it started when I was probably about 5 years old, and I saw Star Wars for the first time, and I realized that um, making a epic space opera, although I didn't know that's what it was at the time,
Oh
was a
yeah,
really great way. What's that?
well, yeah, no, none of us did, but we were all hyped up about it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it just, from that time on, I was uh, motivated to tell stories about people in conflict, usually in war,
Hmm.
and I don't know. Uh, that's where my love of story grew from, and um, as I got older, I think the most accessible way to digest stories was through movies. Um, uh, so when things like Back to the Future came along, like that was really exciting. Um, and then I don't know, Terminator 2, um, just the idea of a sci-fi, a very heady sci-fi concept about good versus evil,
Hmm.
and just sort of the way uh, fate and determinism and free will butt up against each other, that sort of thing.
Okay, so do you limit yourself to sci-fi, or are there other genres of film that you like to watch?
So uh, when I was younger, of course, that was everything that I digested, because when you're 13, 14 years old, Star Trek is interesting, Star Wars is interesting, that sort of thing. But um, I think as I've gotten older and my um, uh, tastes have matured, um, I find that more independent film, more foreign film, usually smaller budgeted films that are telling more human stories have more lasting impact on me than something like, the other day I showed my son Batman Begins for the first time, and
Hmm.
even though I still enjoy that film, I think Christopher Nolan is still a great director. I kind of could feel the thinness, if that's the right word, of like story and character in that movie. And that's not a knock against the movie at all. I still like that movie, but um, after having seen something like the French film Portrait of a Lady on Fire,
Uh-huh.
which I highly recommend to people, um, about the blossoming love between an artist and her subject. Um, Batman, uh, you know, Ninja Batman kicking the crap out of gangsters or whatever seems a little
Shallow, maybe.
shallow, maybe a little juvenile, and that's not to put any value or less value on those films, but the stuff that speaks to me um, is has recently has been more adult fare,
Hmm.
more mature themes and subject matter.
Okay. Well, I know that from the discussions that we have that you are very involved in things that most people aren't when we talk about film. You start to look at the director and how the director does things and techniques and comparisons and things like that I personally don't. I love watching movies too, but I don't really go in depth into that storytelling piece, that piece. So it really kind of, the question of the show is what drives you, and that's my question to you is what do you think drives that?
Um, I think it's the craft of filmmaking. I think that drives my love for it, at least in recent years. There's so many facets to film that everybody has to be really good at, and I think putting together a story, to tell it visually, through like through photography, how to um, dress a scene, light a scene, and even just getting the actors right and getting the right performance out of an individual.
Hmm.
All of that coming together is what kind of like drives my love, of film. Just
Hmm.
getting that moment just right through all these different things that could go wrong, I think.
Okay. Do you ever think about doing work in that field? I know this is probably not the place for you to live to do that, but have you ever thought about making films or writing?
Yeah. When I was younger, there was a time that I was thinking about going to film school, and I was really passionate about that, and I was moving towards it, and then um, I started weighing certain things, um, that there was things going on. It was around the time of 9/11, so everything was the world was a little in flux.
Hmm.
My relationship with my girlfriend at the time was in a situation where I felt that if I moved away, I was probably going to lose her. Um, I was also moving from uh, one region of the country to another, and having to uh, uh, rebuild and restart or start over again in a new place was kind of daunting. So that kind of stymied me when I was younger. But I have created short film, nothing noteworthy, but short projects with my friend Ramon, and um, we made short films that we entered into like a 48-hour film contest, and then we also made things just for ourselves, and that was fulfilling. But the dream was to always, one day get more money,
Of
so we could
course.
actually finance something, because everything that we did was through like volunteer with friends, or just making do with what we had. And but the idea was to, hopefully one day, uh, at least up our game a little. And unfortunately, that never really happened either.
Yeah, life, right?
Life.
Okay.
He was getting married. I was having my wife and I were having a child. Um, yeah, life gets in the way, work gets in the way, unfortunately. But
Okay.
it's
So,
not.
okay. When we were talking about that earlier, what do you think it is about this story format? You think it's the for you personally, is it the human drama piece of it that really drives that, or do you think it's more of the problem solving that you like to do with the scenes and particular projects?
Um, I think, well, of course, it's the technical side of filmmaking that's fun. Like, how do you pull off a certain shot, or how do you create something to convey what you're trying to say? Um, but it's I think it's just the medium itself lends to uh, through image, and through you can create emotion and feeling through image sometimes more effectively in in a film than maybe like in a book, where you're describing someone's feelings or through their inner monologue, where here you're trying to show somebody is in pain, but you're not necessarily having to say it in words, but you can show, through the actor's expression, or the shadow that hits their face, or the shot composition of a particular moment. um, and I think as I've gotten older, I appreciate that more in film, the
Mm-hmm.
artistic side of trying to tell a story through the visual medium.
Okay. So if you were to ever create a movie, let's say that you didn't have to worry about any of this financial stuff that you have to go through, and you were going to create your own magnum opus, if you will, what would that movie look like?
That that I don't know. I am absolutely impressed when I see something that tells a very simple story and can convey so much feeling and so much thought and so much heart. Um, and I have, I guess I'm still stuck in my 13-year-old mindset where if I was to make something, it would have to be big and loud and exciting. And for example, the kind of movie that I would like to tell that I don't, something that would, I feel that is within my grasp or whatever. I saw a film recently called First Cow by Kelly Reichardt, I think is the director.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very simple story um, about these two guys in frontier. Um, it's like in Oregon, and it's like frontier times. And these guys, they're a lot of them are trappers, and they're they live in sort of in this really kind of grungy, wet environment, and they get the idea when this uh, uh, I think he's a military man or whatever, brings a cow into the territory, and it's the first cow, and people, like, oh, that's great. But these two guys that are kind of, you know, business minded decide to milk this cow at night and use the milk to create bread or whatever, this sweet roll, the sweet bread that they're deep fry and sell, and they're making a profit on. And it's a very simple story,
Uh-huh.
but it's told so well, and it's such a great little film. And if it's the kind of film that I would hope that if I ever got the chance that I could tell something so small but so well told, I guess, that
Oh.
that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Okay, well, that pretty much wraps up all the questions that I have, and that's sort of the time limit for our piece here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit with me on this project, and I look forward to talking with you later. Of course, we get together at times and watch movies, so
Yeah, yeah.
looking forward to that. And have a great day on this kind of smoky. Well, it's not as bad as it was earlier in the week.
It's getting better all the time.
Yeah, this smoky Seattle day. Okay, take care.
Take care, Mike. Good to talk to you.
You too. And we're back. Thanks for joining us. Now is the time for the question of the day, and that comes from Laura in Idaho. She says, people have accused me of being an oversharer. Why is oversharing bad? Well, let's think about this from the perspectives that I was talking a little bit about today, and how our brain works. We as human beings need other human beings. We have to connect with other human beings, and we have to share with other people. We need that. In fact, we need it so badly that if we don't have that, we will create that through psychosis and other forms of expression, like anthropomorphizing our pets or things like that. Like I believe I've talked about Wilson, the volleyball, on here. I know I've written about it. That's how strong that need to connect with other human beings is. If we don't have any of it, we'll create it. Now, this is where this clashes with the danger part of our brain. Every time we meet somebody, we automatically go into a threat mode, if you will. not necessarily we're thinking that, but our brains start looking for similarities and differences in the person that we're talking to, because it's new and unknown. And what's one of our greatest fears? The unknown. So we go into this sort of hyper vigilant mode. Our brain starts looking, and how do we do something that we really want to do, but we're not sure if there's a threat involved? Well, we created these social programs, or in other terms, small talk. Hi, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Right? So these are programs that we run to start gathering intel on the person that we're talking to, while keeping ourselves safe by not revealing a lot of information, because I don't know that person, so I don't want to reveal too much to them. And as we go through this small talk system, I know that's probably annoying for some people, like the introvert that I am, I have a lot of trouble with small talk. I don't like it that much. And there are a lot of people that don't, but let's talk about the reason why it exists. Because we want to gather that intel, and the more similarities that we uncover because of this small talk determines whether or not we go into a deeper level of conversation or connection. So how does this create a problem if we overshare? Well, the first thing is we're breaking the social program. So if you ask me how I'm doing, and I suddenly tell you how bad of a day I had, and you don't know me, that breaks the program. I'm already threatening the system, because the social rule says I only share this much, you only share this much, and then we sort of walk into carefully sharing more. So if I automatically start sharing more, I'm automatically breaking the program. So I'm already breaking the rules, and we don't like it when people break the rules, especially our rules. Secondly, when you overshare, then I have almost an obligation to match that, because that's how these social programs work. We're at this level, and then somebody goes to the next level, so the other person meets the next level. So if you go too deep too fast, I am feeling like I'm obligated to do that. So I am suddenly at risk of doing that as well. And if especially that's uncomfortable for me to do, I'm not going to want to do it. So automatically I've got 2 strikes against you. Thirdly, there is the off-putting thing that you might come across as needy, which means you are looking for somebody to protect you, and that's asking a lot, or you're trying to sell me something. So you're giving me a lot more information than I want or desire, because you're trying too hard to connect with me, and that triggers my suspiciousness bar. Why are you doing that? And one of the reasons why salesmen get in trouble so many times that we think about it is that they tend to do those sort of activities where they're trying to connect really hard and fast by asking questions and doing things that we feel off put from. So those are 3 reasons why oversharing can be a problem. And if you're an oversharer, there's a probability that you already have some social anxiety, or maybe you have trouble connecting with people. That could be the reason. So thank you for that question. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember the topic today was egocentrism, and you are the center of your universe. That's important to remember, because it helps us put ourselves in a position so that we can understand somebody else's reality. That's one of the ways that we can get around that whole ability to not connect, is by understanding that we aren't the center of everybody else's universe. So thanks again. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, please go to whatdrivesyou.net. Also, if you're curious about the coaching or consulting side of this, you can go to my main website at mikegorday.com. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.